The movie begins with a young man named Raymond riding in a car with his mother, Jenny. She is driving him to the camp of a competition called the Long Walk, or as they call it, the Death Race. This competition was established by the state to build a strong nation capable of enduring the hardships of the world. As they approach the camp gate, Jenny begs Raymond to withdraw his decision because she is afraid he will die and she won't see him again. However, Raymond insists on his decision, telling her that he must win the race to restore the rights of his father, William. Raymond then says goodbye to Jenny, promising her that he will win the race and return to her. Raymond enters the camp and meets a contestant named Peter. While they are sitting and waiting for the major, the founder of the death race, they meet several other contestants. The total number of contestants is 50. The first one they meet is a strong young man named Steve, who is obsessed with sports and doesn't like talking to anyone. The second young man is Olson, who entered the race with the primary goal of winning the huge cash prize to change his life. Then they meet a young man named Arthur, who seems anxious about the race, but tries to pretend it will be easy for him since he is used to walking. They also see a young boy, only 18 years old, trying to mentally prepare himself for the race, though he looks visibly scared. Seconds later, the major, the founder of the death race, arrives. He reminds the contestants of rule number 13, which states they must conserve their energy for the race. Then he calls their names and gives them the numbers they will wear around their necks. Once the major finishes this phase, he stands them in front of him and explains the basic rules of the race. The race will continue for many long miles. Anyone who stops on the road will be warned once, then twice, but on the third warning, the soldiers will shoot them. The major encourages them before the race begins, stating that there are 50 contestants, but only one will win. The winner will receive a huge cash prize and be granted one wish, whatever it may be. He adds that the goal of this race is to build strong men so the country can be number one in the world. The race begins, and the 50 contestants start walking. They are surrounded by 3 tanks equipped with cameras recording the events of the competition. The major's soldiers are riding in the tanks, holding their weapons. The soldiers' purpose is to warn contestants against stopping and to finish off anyone who decides to give up. At this point, the race is in its early stages, and no one feels tired or finds walking difficult yet. Raymond, Peter, Olson, and Arthur walk together, getting to know each other better and discussing various topics to entertain themselves. Suddenly, a contestant named Gary gets a stone in his shoe and is forced to sit on the ground to take it off. The soldiers immediately surround him, raise their weapons, and issue the first and second warnings. They are moments away from finishing him off, but at the last second, Gary gets up and continues walking. Raymond and Peter are surprised that Gary almost sacrificed himself at the start, but he tells them he did it to get 30 seconds of rest. They mock him because with that action, he could have been the first victim. Peter asks Raymond for his point of view on the competition. Raymond replies that the competition is trivial to him. He sees it as gathering 50 people to put them in a deadly test with only one winner determined, which is a crime against humanity. He tells them he isn't interested in the cash prize and has another goal he wants to win to achieve. Peter agrees with Raymond's opinion, but believes the money is very important, stating his primary goal is to win the money. The contestants continue joking together until suddenly someone comes up from behind them. He had been recording all their names and numbers on a paper. He reveals he is a writer who decided to enter the race to write a book about everything that happens.
Seconds later, Raymond sees the 18-year-old boy suffering from a leg cramp, unable to step on the ground. Raymond runs to him and tries to help. He manages to calm the boy down until he can walk again. Unfortunately, the boy suddenly gets tired and falls to the ground. The soldiers surround him with weapons, issuing the first and second warnings. Sadly, the boy cannot get up before the third warning, and the soldiers shoot him. He becomes the first victim of the race. The other contestants are shocked, but they continue walking and do not stop. At mile 17, Raymond feels tired and can't imagine winning the race in this state. Peter advises him to think about getting through the race moment by moment, to give himself hope with every step. Peter then asks Raymond who formed the idea about the race he mentioned earlier. Raymond says his father, William, planted the truth about the corrupt system in his mind, as he was a wise and liberal man who completely rejected the system's policies. Peter decides to talk about himself, telling Raymond that for a while he wanted to be a lyric poet. But everything changed when this competition appeared. At this time, Olsen and Arthur joined the conversation, agreeing they must enjoy the race, even in the beginning, and continue as one team, dubbing themselves the Musketeers. Suddenly, and without warning, they find a contestant who collapses on the ground. The others watch him die. Unfortunately, Gary mocks him, saying the fun has started and the race will get easier with everyone who falls and dies. Gary gets angry and tells him to stay away from them. After 25 miles, they start to feel a bit tired, so they take out light food to eat for energy. Olsen gets tired from walking and his leg hurts. Raymond advises him to slow down to continue. Olsen listens to Raymond's advice and regains his balance. Raymond notices Peter's body is full of scars and decides to ask him about them, but Peter refuses to say anything. At that moment, Olsen drops his food and cannot stop to pick it up. Raymond takes out some of his own food and gives it to Olsen. Olsen is happy and thanks Raymond for helping him. Meanwhile, we see Gary, the bully, harassing a contestant and insulting him. The young man gets angry and tries to hit him, but Gary is much faster and lighter, dodging all attacks easily and mocking him. The shock comes when the young man gets furious because Gary insults his mother. He attacks Gary recklessly, but trips and falls on his face. He cannot get up, so the soldiers issue the 3 warnings and finish him off since he didn't rise. Raymond and Arthur accuse Gary of killing the young man, but Gary claims the man attacked him, refusing to admit guilt and insulting anyone who blames him. A while later, a contestant desperately needs to use the bathroom and is forced to stop in the middle of the road due to the pain. Unfortunately, the soldiers shoot and kill him for stopping. Tension rises, especially as night falls. Suddenly, and without warning, Raymond falls asleep. While walking and sleeping, he dreams of his mother Jenny singing his favorite song. The dream is short, and when he wakes up, Peter tells him he walked while sleeping for 3 continuous hours and that he had been supporting him. Raymond thanks him, tells him about the dream, and they joke together. Raymond tells Peter he promised Jenny he would win the race and return to her. Suddenly, Raymond cannot step on his leg. As they go up a slope, the soldiers start issuing warnings to him. Peter quickly pulls him and tries to support him to keep him walking. Tension increases among the contestants. Some cannot handle the pressure and give up, and the soldiers mercilessly kill anyone who stops. Raymond feels fear and can't catch his breath. Peter calms him down, has him splash water on his head, and supports him until they pass the slope safely. At the beginning of the second day, having covered 59 miles, Raymond and Peter find Olsen silent and barely walking. They approach Olsen to try to wake him up, but suddenly look back to find the rider has broken his leg and cannot walk at all. Raymond is affected, seeing the soldiers kill the rider before his eyes. Peter tries to calm Raymond, asking him to control his emotions to continue. The major meets them, congratulating them for passing 100 miles and encouraging them to fight to the end. Raymond and Peter find Steve, the physically strongest of them all, exhausted and unable to breathe. Steve tells him he has an allergy that hits him once a year, and his bad luck is that it hit today. However, Steve decides to endure it to win the race. Peter asks Raymond, Olsen, and Arthur about the wishes they would ask for if they won. Arthur says he would ask for a space rocket to go to the moon. Olson says he wants to travel the world and live the life of luxury he dreams of. Peter says he would wish for his friends to live a decent life with the money he wins. Raymond says he hasn't thought of a wish because he doesn't feel he'll win, especially since the number is down to 15 contestants. Gary mocks him, calling him a liar for not revealing his wish. Raymond gets annoyed and tells Gary to not talk to him, especially since he caused the death of our colleague. They all start singing to distract themselves from the challenge. At night, Raymond falls asleep again, and Peter supports him until he wakes up. At the start of the third day, Raymond takes his baseball from his bag, and he and Peter play catch while walking. Suddenly, they look back and find Arthur with a stomachache, desperate to use the bathroom. Raymond and Peter urge him on because the soldiers are surrounding him and starting the warnings. At the last moment, Arthur gets up and continues walking, but when he gets close to Peter and Raymond, they ask him to keep some distance because of the smell. Raymond talks to Peter and decides to confess the real reason he participated. He says the reason is to take revenge on the major for killing his father. He explains that his father, William, was a liberal teacher who hated the corrupt system's politics and advised people to demand their rights. One day, while they were sitting quietly, the major attacked them and had his soldiers restrain William. The major wanted to force William to pledge loyalty to the corrupt system in exchange for his life. William refused to yield, said goodbye to Jenny and Raymond, and unfortunately, the major killed William in front of Raymond in a horrific scene. Raymond tells Peter that if he wins, he will ask the major for a weapon to kill him and avenge his father. Peter calms Raymond, telling him revenge will destroy him and asking him to forget the idea, because his mother is waiting for him. He explains that even if he kills the major, his men will kill Raymond, and Jenny's heart will break for him just as it did for his father. They continue the path, passing 170 miles. One contestant gets tired of walking and runs toward the soldiers to request withdrawal. Unfortunately, the tank driver runs him over, severing his leg. That same night, after passing 203 miles, Raymond finds Olson unable to walk. Olson decides to attack the soldiers, but sadly, they kill him. Arthur runs to Olson, trying to lift him, but the soldiers start the warnings. Before they finish, Raymond runs and pulls Arthur to make him walk, forcing them to leave Olson to the fate he chose. On the fourth day, Parker is shocked by what Olson did. Peter replies that he respected Olson for deciding to die on his own terms. Parker surprises Peter by revealing Olson was married and wanted to win to fulfill his wife's wish of becoming a famous singer. Peter looks around and sees despair in Parker and Arthur's eyes, so he calms them, saying they are one team and will fight together to the end. At this moment, Gary feels alone, since no one has accepted him since he caused the colleague's death. He approaches Raymond, saying he feels guilty and didn't mean to do it. He asks Raymond to convince Peter to let him join their team, explaining he never had friends and always had to be aggressive to be noticed. Raymond assures him he will convince Peter, but unfortunately, Peter cannot forgive Gary and refuses. Gary feels unwanted and decides without thinking to kill himself. He takes out a sharp object and stabs himself in the neck. Still, the soldiers count the warnings and then kill him. On the fifth day, after 278 miles, Parker talks to Raymond, saying they are close to the state where Raymond lives, where Jenny will be waiting. Parker encourages him to endure until he reassures his mother. Parker is sad because he wants to return home too and envies Raymond for being the only one who might see his family. They continue a walk another 8 miles and reach Raymond's state. Suddenly, Raymond's shoe tears apart and he can't walk. Peter advises him to take off the shoe and walk barefoot. Raymond has to listen, though he is worried his feet will get injured. Seconds later, Raymond sees Jenny standing on the road waving at him. He runs to her crying and apologizing for not listening to her. Peter runs after him, pulling him to keep him walking so he doesn't die in front of his mother. Peter sees Raymond feeling broken and afraid of losing and never seeing his mother again.
He encourages him, reminding him he walked for 5 whole days and isn't far from his dream. He tells him he must fight to return to his mother. Peter is moved by the scene between Raymond and Jenny and decides to tell his story. He says his parents died in the war when he was a child, and his drunkard uncle took him in, but died from drinking when Peter was 10. After his uncle's death, he was homeless, living a hard life with other suffering children. Because no one cared for him, he got into many fights until he picked a fight with a stronger opponent who beat him severely. Peter woke up in a hospital covered in wounds and realized he was wrong to face someone stronger. From that moment, he understood he needed to find a new life and build hope, which is why he entered the competition. His goal is the prize to help the poor suffering from the same conditions he faced. Raymond respects Peter even more and decides to fight with him to the end.
Steve speaks to them, saying it's every man for himself now, as only 5 are left. Suddenly, Parker makes a fateful decision, attacks a soldier, takes his rifle, and kills him. The other soldiers gather and shoot Parker, but he insists on dying honorably, holding the rifle as it ends. Raymond and Peter find Arthur bleeding heavily from his nose, unable to walk. Arthur asks that whoever wins deliver his necklace to his grandmother and tell her he wanted to win to treat her. He asks them to promise not to watch him die. Once they promise and take the necklace, Arthur lets go of their hands and falls before the soldiers, who finish him immediately. Only Peter, Raymond, and Steve are left. Steve decides to surprise them by revealing he is the Major's illegitimate son, whom the Major refuses to acknowledge. He entered the race to win and raise his head before the world. Unfortunately, feeling exhausted from his allergy, he decides to stop walking and dies, with his head held high. Now only Peter and Raymond remain. As they approach the finish line, spectators surround them, chanting both their names. At this moment, Peter decides to stop and sacrifice himself so Raymond can achieve his dream and avenge the Major. But Raymond rushes to pick him up before he dies, saying they must finish the path together. Raymond resists Peter and sits on the ground without Peter noticing. Peter is shocked to hear a gunshot behind him. He turns quickly to run to Raymond, but the Major declares Peter the winner and finishes Raymond off right before Peter's eyes. Peter's heart burns for his friend Raymond, and he screams at the top of his lungs. He decides to fulfill Raymond's dream himself. He asks the Major for a rifle as his wish. He takes it and shoots the Major in the middle of the forehead. The movie ends.